It's good. It's
cool.
Awesome place.
Okay. It's in southern Colorado. Early in the year, I reached out for permission to check it out. In September, I got a call back from someone and got permission and went down there with my dog and to check it out. I got a rec permit, checked in, pointed in the right direction. All is well till about time to head back. And I had packed away my gear when there's a light in the sky that starts to split up and dance around in kind of fractal-like patterns for about a minute. I'm in awe and wondering if this is military. Just kind of remember being like, okay, whatever with it, and heading out and not thinking too much of it. Go home to get stuff off my drone. And when I link up to get the images and video off my graphics driver, I suddenly unregister from my PC, and it starts going nuts. My PC is still in the shop, supposedly still won't be looked at till next week. So his basically, he tried to upload his photos and his computer crashed completely, and he can't. It's like dead. His computer's complete. I'm
going to pause you for a second. The fractal thing is very interesting. I've never heard that before. I've never heard of a UFO making fractal-like patterns in the sky. That is very weird. I want to see these photos.
Right? But he can't. Like, it's everything, like everything has crashed.
Yeah, sounds like he'd like to see him too.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so then the story continues. So this must be a couple days after. I'm driving home from my part-time job in Arvada. Going back to, I'm not going to say where, because we don't need this. Not the rest of the world doesn't need to know where you live. I had been at work from 11 to 8, and remember driving near I-70-25, coming out from an underpass and seeing all these flashing lights again. Next thing I know, I'm at a gas station out by the Rocky Mountain National Arsenal. My GPS said I had been there for almost 8 hours, and I was going 100 miles per hour the whole time. And I was driving back the opposite direction of where I was supposed to go, home. My friend, who I was in contact with during the incident, said I called him only 32 minutes prior, but when you look at the call log, my phone was doing a weird thing where a call would go out for a few seconds, but one would come in for a quick minute, and it would last for 3 minutes and 33 seconds.
Huh.
So this friend who's trying to call him, so basically, I'm kind of paraphrasing now because I talked to him a little bit more. It's like his friend was trying to call him or talk to him, and then he would be calling his friend from another line at the same time. Does that make sense?
Weird.
It's super weird.
It was like it was calling in from a different place?
Yeah, like him.
While he was talking to his friend?
But the thing is, he's missing time right now. He's like 8 hours missing. He's in so this is really weird. So he says his friend, he used to work for the army in South Korea doing this intel stuff, and he was like, man, I have no idea what was up with your phone or what happened with your PC. And he's wondering if this was a military thing around. He started to pull his friend started to pull his gear out. The drone's dead. Put in a second battery. The smart controller with the screen won't sync. The second battery starts to die. Phone restarts a couple times. And when I do get it open, it cracks.
So everything electronic is just going haywire.
Right. So he has no pictures. His drone doesn't work. And then he experiences a couple days later this missing time. Right?
Right.
All classic UFO encounter
all
stuff.
Classic UFO
so
stuff.
frustrating that you take photos and it's all burned or gone away. It just makes you look like a crazy person. But so many people have that experience. You are not crazy, Kyle. You're not crazy people out there who have that experience. Stand strong.
So, and then one last thing that he remembers when he came back and he realized he was sitting at a gas station and he'd been driving 100 miles per hour and he was gone for 8 hours in the opposite direction. He says,
so wild, yeah.
One of the creepiest feelings about this whole thing is that when I started to come back to myself, I was seeing myself in the field across from the gas station, watching myself in my truck parked in the gas station.
Wow.
That's some weird consciousness stuff.
Super weird. So, of course, the reason I'm bringing up this story because it's. I mean, I'm so thankful Kyle brought it up. It's definitely high strangeness, definitely all classic UFO stuff, missing time, lights in the sky, electronics go haywire. But maybe again back to this article, just the idea of the article, not the person. who's saying it, but maybe it's possible that it wasn't the military trying to stop him from gathering the pictures or, just telling this story. It was an extraterrestrial presence that was stopping him, and all the electronic devices that he could possibly communicate at that moment just gone completely.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't know what happened to him for 8 hours, so you have no idea what he encountered unless he goes under a regression.
Ooh, we should go into regression.
Oh, I'd love to hear what happens. I actually read some of what he was saying too, and there was one thing that he mentioned where he said the only thing he remembers before he was all of a sudden 8 hours in the wrong direction was going under an underpass, seeing a flash of bright light, and that was it. Which was really odd. I don't know what to make of that. That's crazy.
No, that's so weird. You know what's so funny about aliens, though? Like, they're not perfect. We see this over and over again. Like, they're so clever, and their technology is so far ahead of us, but they just put you on the wrong highway, going the wrong direction. You're missing a shoe. Like, they're not great. They're like
pants run backwards.
Yeah, exactly. God damn it, Susan! You screwed it up again. He's going the wrong direction. He saw himself in the field.
They're firing their interns.
Yeah. There's so many people getting fired in the Galactic Federation constantly for keeping this a secret right now.
Oh, man.
They have a very high turnover rate.
They're sloppy, man. They're fucking sloppy.
The Galactic Federation Union has a lot to answer for right now.
But seriously,
Craziness.
Kyle, if you're out there, buddy, listening again to this pod, get a regression therapy. See if you can uncover anything else. Unless that really scares the shit out of you, then don't do that. But we'd love to hear more, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Missing time. I want to know what happens during that point.
And again, we're here. Again, if you want to email us, if anybody else has any stories, we're here to be a sounding board for that. So let us know.
Absolutely.
Keep it PG, though.
Yeah.
What?
Keep it out of the gutter.
What? No.
I'm
Everything
kidding.
I said no.
You're like
Make
a
it as
dirty
dirty as
Australian. You're telling
possible.
people to keep it PG. Yeah. Although if you wait, hold on a second. Matt does have a good point. If you're going to be all like gross dude talking about me and you or whatever, yes. Yeah, Matt is right.
I don't want pictures though. Yeah.
That's funny.
Josh would like dick pics, but I don't want them.
Yeah, send all dick pics to me. I collect dick pics. I'm making a coffee.
Care of Josh Goldberg.
Sign it. Yeah. I don't care. Make those veins pop out. I really want to see the definition.
Goodness gracious. Yeah.
Oh my god. All right, you assholes. Who's next?
Well, I think we decided I'm going to go next because Matt's going to go last. But I wanted to break down tonight a very amazing interview that happened recently. I generally hate breaking down another person's podcast, but this one's a huge podcast. Joe Rogan, recently Jacques Vallée, and the director of The Phenomenon, the new UFO doc that everyone should see. It's a little 101, but it's still worth it, and everyone should see that documentary. James Fox, the director. I think I called him Jamie Fox like 3 podcasts ago. Sorry about that. He's not the actor.
He goes by Jamie.
Jamie Foxx too, though. Jamie Foxx is awesome too. But so who's Jacques? Before I get into the podcast, who's Jacques Vallée? For those who out there who don't know who that is, he's got some fat dick spirit from the UFO world. He's a big, big name. He's been around longer than anyone in the UFO world. I think he's 80 now. He is literally like a computer scientist, a venture capitalist, an astronomer. He's in Silicon Valley, being a venture capitalist. He's a ufologist. What he's probably most famous for, his character was portrayed in the movie Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind by Spielberg. The French guy in that movie was based off him, which was really cool. I have a lot of respect for that movie. With a little side note, Jacques Vallée told Spielberg in that movie, this is a good way to start what I'm about to talk about, that Spielberg should end the movie not about ETs. They shouldn't be from somewhere else. They might be from here. And the more interesting story might be that they're not extraterrestrial. There's something else that we don't quite understand. And I thought that was fascinating. I'm really glad I listened to this podcast because I thought Jacques Vallée was the king of it's all in your head. And that's not a French accent. I don't know what that was. I'm just not going to do that. I'm just not going to do
Oh my God.
Try.
So pronunciation and accents, no bueno.
I have to do something cliche to get into it. I have to be yeah. But no. But Jacques Vallée, I always hated anyone who said, like, it's all consciousness and it's mass hysteria and it's your own mind reflecting it in the sky and everyone's seeing UFO. Like, I hate that shit. It bothers me, and the evidence does not say that. That's a cop-out. I thought he was the king of that, but he's not, and it was refreshing to learn more about him again, even though I thought I knew everything about him. So, what's the first thing in this podcast that was awesome? It had actually nothing to do with Jacques Vallée. James Fox got a live text from Christopher Mellon while he was on the podcast, and Christopher Mellon was like, you need to read this now. Who is Christopher Mellon? He is a former intelligence officer, I forget his exact title, in the government, in the CIA or whatever, who was a part of ATIP, who was responsible for getting those 2017 Navy UAP videos out and getting that big article out. He's really helped start this whole movement, ATIP, the whole 9 yards. So on the podcast, he text James Fox, and this is what he said. He goes, 48 hours ago, he learned of 2 more stunning incidents that happened on film earlier this year. He just came to knowledge of them. There was 2 incidents that have film and, I guess, iPhone photos of. It was a little confusing. I know there's definitely photos of it. I'm not sure if there's film, but they did say film at one point. One of them, kind of interesting. I've never seen this before, but apparently this is a common sighting by a lot of Navy and Air Force pilots. It's a flying dark sphere with a cube inside of it, which I've never actually seen a photo of that before.
A cube? Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't think I've even heard that described before. That's interesting.
I haven't either.
Me either. I thought it was, but what was even more stunning to me was that apparently it's common. The pilots see that shit all the time.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I need to see that. The other incident, which just filled me with like the tingles, was someone witnessed a giant black triangle, a gigantic black triangle, leaving the ocean and shooting up vertically at an impossible speed suddenly, and someone snapped a photo of it. I need to see that photo before I die. Like, I need to see whatever the fuck that was. So Mellon is pushing. The reason why he texted James Fox on the podcast was be like, we need to put pressure on the government. We need to put pressure on the people. The pilots and everyone involved in those incidents wants that information out. And he did it on purpose to, like, have him say it on the podcast when millions of people are listening. I thought that was super fascinating. I need those photos to come out. He also brought up an interesting point in his letter that James Fox read that I thought was cool, that he said that he brought up a notion that's like we don't really talk about. Like, everyone's excited about that the government released or acknowledged that they have a secret government program to study UFOs. It was ATIP, and now it's something else, and they're supposed to give this information. But he's like, that's so absurd. You think that in the vast size of the U.S. Defense Department that's the only thing they're looking at? That's the only program that's studying UFOs?
Right.
Of course not. So he's trying to also he's trying to get that out even more, that this is just the tip of the iceberg, which is really, 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 really interesting. So another point...
That's what she said.
Yeah, she did.
Why is it not funny when I say it?
It was funny. It was funny.
It just caught me off guard. I'm shook. Just give me a minute.
Okay, so the second thing... No, you're good. It's funny. The second thing I thought was really interesting is I never really heard... Well, I guess I have a little bit. Like, anyone on the inside is really naming a company or naming a branch, or I guess branches, naming a person of who's responsible for covering this shit up and who actually is behind it and what companies. Because you always hear about private contractors are the ones who are supposed to be studying the UFO stuff, and the government hired them out, which is interesting. You can see how, like, secrecy starts because these private companies get this and they just don't give it back to the government. But Jacques Vallée, in the podcast, mentions that metal. They talk a lot about these different metals in parts of UFOs over the years that have been captured and analyzed, like multiple times. So if someone's saying there's no evidence, there's like multiple examples of evidence. And this guy is super credible. And he talks about this place called the Battelle Memorial Institute. The Battelle Memorial Institute. I was like, I never heard of these fucks. Well, they're super famous, super old, not famous, but just a really old company that does a lot of science. They control like 6 or 8 national laboratories. They're a private company, and they're really, really, really interesting. I want to read a couple things I found from this article about them that I thought would make people go, huh. One, Battelle...
Just before you do, I think that the idea behind contracting out to private companies like this is that they can cover up a paper trail. There's no FOIA requests for this because it's not part of the government, you know. So they can really keep a pretty tight lid on this kind of thing. But at the same time, like, would they put trust in civilian contractors like this? I don't know. For these huge things, I don't know.
Well, you're right. The paper trail it can be fudged, and also there's a lot more money in that than someone who just reports to the government. Mm-hmm. They make a lot more alliances than you think.
Yeah,
like somebody
totally.
who works directly for the U.S. government is in a different position. It has a different responsibility.
Right.
Right. Yep.
No, totally. I think it backfires.